Welcome to the show, guys. We got an exciting one here for you with Jimmy, aka the Maverick. We are talking about the top 10 fantasy football handcuffs. Now, this is not in a particular order, but we're making you aware of your favorite running backs, backup, their ADPs, if you should draft them. Should you handcuff? Should you not handcuff? To handcuff or to not to handcuff? That is the discussion. On the show with me, Jim. What's happening, Jim? Are you ready to handcuff each other? Oh, wait, hold on. That doesn't sound too good.
Yeah, it's usually like a hostage situation, man, right? I'm gonna handcuff you to to the radiator so you can't get away.
It depends. It depends. I mean, if it's other situation, you could be handcuffing someone to a bed. I mean, it's probably not a good show to be listening to if your wife's stressed. Like, what's he listening to? Fantasy, handcuffing. What's going on over here on this channel? But guys, it's purely innocent. A handcuff means it's the backup to your running back. And when your running back goes down, you've got a handcuff. Okay, not the type that, you handcuff to the bed or anything like that. Not those type of handcuffs. So I'm ready to dive in, Jim. I'm excited to go into this, man. And I talk anything fantasy football, man. Handcuffs, vultures, all these. We're going to cover it all here.
Now, let's just talk general discussion before we get into the specific players. But do you like to handcuff your lead running backs, or do you just like to grab handcuffs of other players' lead running backs?
That's a great question. So there's two ways to play it. I've thought this through, and there's a lot of fantasy football draft strategy behind this. So I'm more of the power player. So what I do, for example, I love Bijan Robinson. I'm not going to go grab Allgeier, but let's say I miss out on Breece Hall, okay, and I get Bijan. Great. Now I'm going to go have Braelon Allen. I'm going to grab Braelon Allen later because I have conviction in my guy. So I believe in Bijan. I don't believe he's going to go down. But if I miss out on Breece, so maybe there's a chance Breece does go down. If he does, I hate to say it for fantasy, I don't care. And then I now have two RB1s in Braelon Allen and Bijan. Does that make sense? So I'm more of a risk taker, power play guy. And then people are like, well, don't you want the safety and security of your running back having his handcuff? I'm like, no, because there's so much depth on my roster at running back that if I do lose my starter, God forbid, to an injury, I'm still covered. So that's the power play I play. And so now I'm having two RB. I have somebody else's handcuff. Then I have two RB1 workhorses. So that's my thought process. What's your thought process on this?
Yeah, I mean, they've shown statistically over and over again that if you grab your own handcuff, that you're making your team weaker than it was. Because think about it. If you take Bijan and you take Allgeier, Bijan goes down. Okay, so now you have Allgeier, but he's just like a worse version of Bijan. So
Yes.
You've degraded your team, although it's not a complete loss. You've degraded your team. Your team is not as good. Whereas if you're grabbing other players' handcuffs and those lead backs go down, your team gets stronger because now you have an additional piece that is potentially startable. So for me, I love grabbing other team handcuffs when we're talking in the late rounds of your draft. When you're in 12, 13, 14, 15, those rounds are great rounds to pick up these guys. And again, if something happens to that lead back, this other guy can potentially become a startable asset. And like last year, that's what I did. I took a lot of shares of Miles Sanders and I took a lot of shares of Chuba Hubbard, and they both worked out. They both paid off very well because the lead backs didn't perform or got injured, and they just took over the backfield, and they were like every week starters, and so that's what you want. It makes your team stronger. And so I'm a big proponent of grabbing a bunch of handcuffs, but not from your team, other team handcuffs. So,
another fantasy football draft tip. This is very important. When I am grabbing a handcuff as my backup, I go for an upside handcuff who could be the starter. This is very, very important. For example, we're going to talk about these handcuffs like Kamani Vidal. Tons of upside. The guy was a beast in college, and I'm not sold on Gus Bus. So if you're in a situation where you're not sold on the starter isn't Breece Hall, the starter isn't Bijan, the starter isn't CMC, then you've got a chance that some of these guys that are handcuffs, as they call them, could actually be the starter and have a ton of upside. That's important. Another reason I don't like doing handcuffs of the same team, example, Baiji and Allgeier, I just think it's bad karma. I think it's just a bad feeling I get. It's a bad vibe. It's almost like sending a bad juju out there to say, like, I don't feel comfortable in my guy. There's conviction. There's a thought he's going to get hurt. No, you draft a guy, you hope for the best, and you don't put out that bad karma. Every time I do that, I feel like I'm wasting a pick and I'm putting out bad energy. So that's another reason. Very, very important, guys. Practical stuff that not a lot of people talk about this stuff, right? There's like, yeah, handcuff your guy. No, we're giving you the actual strategy and the thought process behind it. And again, I don't handcuff. There you go. So let's get into this. Again, top 10 handcuffs here. Now, again, I don't consider, we talked about this. When Jim gave me the list, I'm like, where's Blake Corum? Where's Trey Benson? But those guys aren't handcuffs because those guys could be potential starters or they're in a timeshare, Jim, right? So we're not concerned about Trey Benson he's not a handcuff. He is slated to be the potential starter. So, or he's in a major timeshare. It might be 50-50. So is that the thought process, Jim, behind this?
Yeah, these are guys that don't really have fantasy value unless the lead back goes out. So that's kind of how we're playing. So yeah, guys like David Montgomery, that are in those timeshares and stuff. I'm not putting those in because that guy's actually startable as like a flex play. Yeah. But these guys also are typically much later on the draft board than someone like Montgomery. I think Montgomery's like an 8th round guy. These guys start round 10 and past that. So that's where we're talking about. And so there you go.
All right, so let's get on with our first one here. But before we do, guys, make sure you have the 16-round draft solution and hit the thumbs up. Smash it, tap it, slap it. Oh, the shirts are coming out. Jim, I'm creating smash it, tap it, slap it shirts. They're in development right now. They're pretty cool, man. They are really, really cool. I'm making them right now. I got to ship you one. Well, I'm going to get one, and they're coming very, very soon. That needs to be done soon. I just did the artwork for it. They're pretty cool. So smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up, and grab 16 rounds. You'll be light years ahead of the Sheep says. Sleepers, breakouts, optimal players draft each round, 16 rounds, secure the solution, secure the championship. Everything you need to smash your leagues. I've linked it below, okay? So let's get to it here with our first handcuff, top 10 handcuffs, is Zach Charbonnet. So last year I was really pissed, because he was drafted with such high draft capital, and I knew he'd be a thorn in the side of Walker. He wasn't as big of a thorn. I was talking about this in one of my other videos. He wasn't as big of a thorn, but he was a big enough thorn where he pushed Walker out of the top 10. Walker didn't finish as high as he could have. 905 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, and 8 touchdowns. Charbonnet stole 108 attempts. Had even 50 or 60 of those 108 attempts went to Walker, it would have made him easily crack the top 10 in regards to finishes. 462 yards stolen by Charbonnet, only 1 touchdown, and 33 receptions. So again, when I looked at the numbers, Jim, that shows 33 receptions alone that Charbonnet stole would have made Walker better. But I think he's even going to get an upgrade in this offense this year and gets more work. What are your thoughts on Charbonnet, and should you be handcuffing him?
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't like to take, if I'm taking Walker, I'm not taking Charbonnet, but I do like Charbonnet as a high value handcuff that you could get on your team. And I think he's going to have an expanded receiving role. Kenneth Walker doesn't do a lot of pass catching. So that is something that Charbonnet could definitely take an additional work with. But I still think that Walker is the lead back. Walker is the goal line guy. We saw it 8 touchdowns versus just 1. The other thing we saw is that the addition of Charbonnet did not hurt Walker's usage at all. Walker had just as much usage as he had the year before. So he was actually a great bargain when he went down, and he was like, a 4th round player last year or something like that. I did grab him in a couple leagues. He did great. He was a solid RB2. I think Charbonnet is a quality piece that could have an expanded role this year, and that makes me kind of like him because he could be startable on a weekly basis. We'll see what happens, but you never know. New coaches, everything else. So we'll see what happens.
I'll have 0 stock in Seattle. I don't know. I'm just not really sold on Walker this year being outstanding. He wasn't outstanding last year. Like I said, I think Charbonnet takes a bigger role this year. But again, we talked about handcuffing, and I don't want to disregard this whole episode. You need to know about these guys. You need to know if they're going to be thorns in the side. You need to know their ADPs. You need to be aware of them in case you want to steal someone else's handcuff. But I'm completely against handcuffing, grab somebody else's handcuff, and when their top player goes down, you have their handcuff, you have 2 running backs. That's my strategy on this. Next guy, again, has tons of upside. I actually like this guy as a sleeper. I just did a sleeper episode. I had him on, I talked about him. It's Kamani Vidal, 231 is average ADP, going for a steal. I was in a $350 league a couple days ago. I drafted, and some guy sniped this guy, man. He took all my sleeper running backs pretty much. I'm lucky.
And it was one guy, right? It was like one guy just kept taking all your players.
Oh man, because there's certain players. So he was the guy. He drafted 3rd. I drafted 10th. And I was like, there's certain players I had to have, like, coming on the turn. Like, I need my second quarterback. Like, certain things I just needed, I wanted, right? Like, before they got sniped, I wanted a backup tight end that I really liked, a sleeper. And I'm like, yeah, like, Kamani Vidal is definitely going to fall. And prior to that, because I went Spears, and that's the thing. It's either you go Spears or Benson. You can't, it's hard to get both. Like, you got to make a decision. And in one league, I went Benson because I thought Spears would fall. He didn't. So this league, the ADP was showing me that maybe Benson's going to fall back. And this guy I went Spears, he went Benson, and then I'm like, okay, cool, I'll just get Blake Corum. And then he went Blake Corum, then I wanted to get my other guy that I liked, and then he came back and took Kamani Vidal. Dude, he took all the sleepers. I was like so pissed off, man. All these upside running backs, he took them. But anyways, going back to Vidal here, I should always have a backup plan for a backup plan. We're talking fantasy football draft strategy, by the way. Don't be discouraged if someone, takes all your players. But Kamani Vidal, I'm looking up his stats, man. I'm pulling him up right now because I had him up and they went away. He had a good college, 5'8", 215. He's strong. 1,600 plus yards, 5.6 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns. This guy was a beast in college out of Troy. I mean, they got a deal, 6th round, the Chargers here. And I know you've got a lot of Gus Bus stock. I'm not sold on him. He's coming off a pinnacle year. When I looked at his stats, Gus Bus had 13 touchdowns last year. The 4 years prior, it took him 4 years to get what he did in his last year with Baltimore. Dude, I'm not sold on Gus Bus being a good guy, and J.K. Dobbins couldn't finish a game to save his life. Kamani Vidal's in a great position. All I'm saying is stash him, and I think he could be the starter. I mean, who knows? It's weird in Charger land, don't you think?
Yeah. And just FYI, what were you saying was this ADP on
I got 231 in PPR right now. And again, we're talking 12 person, 1 point PPR. We're not talking best ball. So 231 divided by 12. He's like 19, but no, he's not. Like his ADP is 19, but people are aware of him. He is coming off in drafts earlier. And this is happening similar with guys like Lad McConkey. Just because their ADP is round 9, like McConkey's is 8 or 9, he's coming off round 6 or 7. So same with Vidal, he's coming off a lot earlier. But again, if you look at the Concheapsis rankings anywhere, magazines, it's around 231 overall on his ADP.
In best ball right now, he's coming off at 156. So that's 13th round. And I think that's probably a more realistic idea as to where he's going. And I think certainly there's an upside potential here because both Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins have dealt with a lot of injuries over their years. Gus is older. He's an older player. And so there's definitely an opportunity here. And frankly, I think J.K. Dobbins is done. He tore his Achilles last year. That's usually a death knell for a running back. How many injuries has he had during his career? Tons. And so, there's a real opportunity here that Kamani could come in and just through attrition, just become the lead back in this backfield. And this is a team that wants to run the ball. They're going to be run first. There's going to be a lot of opportunities here. So I think he's a great option. Like I said, 13th round, a great time to grab handcuffs. And I think he's a good one that I'm going to be looking at in a lot of drafts.
Definitely. This is, again, one of those handcuffs where I don't even consider him a handcuff. He could be the starter. Very interesting. Next guy here is Chase Brown. What do you think of Chase Brown here, man? The upside is, he was okay last year. Now he's got a chance to be the starter. The thing about this is another situation where I'm not sold on Zach Moss being a true RB1. And then you got Chase Brown, 186 ADP. Could be the one there. They got a good offense. Joe Burrow healthy, hopefully. I don't know, man. This is a very, very interesting pick here. I'm kind of torn here because he's got some upside here. Because again, I'm not sold on Moss Boss. I don't know. This is an interesting guy. Could be the starter, Chase Brown.
I don't know. I look at what he did last year, and the guy didn't do anything. I mean,
I
that's
know.
the whole thing. I mean, he never supplanted Mixon at all. He had 44 carries the whole season, 14 receptions. He only got one receiving touchdown. I'm just not convinced. I'm
Yeah.
much more inclined to take Zach Moss. And both these guys are going very close to one another. You know, Chase Brown in best ball right now, ADP 121. And geez, I didn't even look it up. But if we look at Zach Moss, he's at ADP 91. So they're very close
Yeah.
to one another, just a few rounds apart. And frankly, I'd rather have Moss. You know, I just think Moss has actually shown it. He's been on the field. He has performed very well when he was in Indianapolis. This is another good offense with a good offensive line. I don't know if I'm going to have any shares of Chase Brown. I just can't see myself just taking him. He's going to about the same place that Zach Charbonnet is going. I think I'd rather have Charbonnet, frankly, but that's just what I'm seeing. I just didn't see anything last year to lead me to think that this guy could be a lead back.
Yeah, I have no stock in Chase Brown either. But when I look at I just take a look at Zach Moss. And again, Chase Brown did nothing, and he's not exciting either. But it almost feels like when I see these type of this situation, I take a look at Minnesota situation where like Aaron Jones is the starter. It's almost like looking at it and be like, are you guys done? Is this it? Like, it almost feels like anticlimactic when I look at these committees. Like, that's all you got? Like, you're going to start Zach
You're going to go into the season with that in your backfield. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, you can say that about the Chargers. You know,
yeah, Chargers same thing. They make me feel like that as well, and that's why I like Ladd McConkey so much, because they're going to use him in those short yardage pass situations. So he's going to be a PPR monster because it just is just like primed. I just look at McConkey, and that's why he just really, really excites me. He really does.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next guy here. MarShawn Lloyd. Now, this guy is a speedster. Another situation where he can show flashes, I think, kind of like the way Jahmyr Gibbs did, where he can be a starter. And I think he's really going to dip into Josh Jacobs' value. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I got to say, of all these handcuffs, MarShawn Lloyd has got the most buzz right now. He has really moved up the draft board. Right now, his ADP is at 142. He was in the 200s like 3 weeks ago. So he's really, really moved up. Lots of people are talking about it, and they're all saying, well, you know, Green Bay, they utilize 2 running backs all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but the second quarterback was always been A.J. Dillon, and A.J. Dillon's never been a fantasy relevant player. He's never gotten enough work to be fantasy relevant. So I think he's being overbid right now. I'm a big believer in Josh Jacobs this year. I think he's going to be great. He's in a great situation. They paid him. You know, I feel that MarShawn Lloyd is brought in as a person to replace A.J. Dillon, a backup player. You know, he doesn't have he was like what 4th or 5th round pick. So I'm not convinced. I think he's being overhyped right now. That's what I'm saying. He's being overhyped. That makes me unlikely to want to take him as a handcuff. I don't need a buzzy handcuff. I need a guy that can, you know, quietly just solidly step in if the league guy gets hurt. So
I think he's a buzzy handcuff, but again, 3rd round draft capital, pretty high, 5'9", 215.
Oh, he was drafted in the 3rd round. Okay, all right.
Yeah, 3rd round, 88th overall. Okay, so that is pretty high draft capital for a guy. And he's a speedster, and he's just a prototypical running back out of South Carolina. His numbers weren't good. He wasn't overused. 7.1 yards per carry last season, just under 1,000 yards. 9 touchdowns. So 9 touchdowns the season before. So he can get it done near the goal line. He's got that explosiveness, which is really interesting. It just sucks. Again, guys like him, guys like Braelon Allen are just stuffed behind guys that are just better and are paid very well or whatever, or just, you know, the starters. So again, I don't know, man. Are we going to see Montgomery Thunder Lightning? And I think that's possible. I think the acquisition of MarShawn Lloyd was enough for me to turn me off of drafting Josh Jacobs, because I was all in on Jacobs. When I saw the 3rd round pick of MarShawn Lloyd, I was like, yeah, like there's something there that's bothering me. And I was turned right off of Jacobs. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. I could be wrong. MarShawn Lloyd could just be a bench guy. But if we go back to what I just said about Zach Charbonnet, what if, like, you know, Jacobs could have finished top 10, but then in comes Lloyd and gets 40 receptions, 500 yards, 105 carries, and then boom. Now you've significantly deflated the value of Jacobs. And that's what I'm thinking is going to happen here.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at AJ Dillon's stats, and although last year was a disaster, the year before he did almost have 1,000 yards from scrimmage. With both like 200 receiving and about 700 rushing. So there was some significant usage there. I think he got 7 touchdowns. So that could definitely be, he could be a sneaky flex play. He could be just be an every week starter, even with Josh Jacobs playing. So, that's something I'm guessing that's a big reason why he's getting so much buzz. And knowing that he was drafted in the 3rd round, I forgot that he was drafted in the 3rd. I thought he was a 4th round guy. So,
No.
Yeah.
Next guy here, again, I see and I listen to some other podcasts. They talk about like, oh, this guy has great value, draft him. Like, if you get 60 rounds, make sure you guys do grab the 60-round drafts, because I admit players like this, like cockroaches like this when it comes to fantasy. He's just a nobody for me. Chuba Hubbard is a guy I would never draft, don't care for. Jonathan Brooks is the best talented player there. I actually do like Brooks. I have no stock. I ended up missing out on him in a bunch of drafts, but he is coming off that knee injury, but they drafted Brooks, high draft capital. He's going to be the guy. Chuba Hubbard, years to wow us, we're not wowed. Always a backup. And again, don't waste picks on these guys because they're just going to give you safe numbers. Go for home runs. Go for guys who could be the ones. Jonathan Brooks, well over this guy. 138 is ADP for Chuba Hubbard. And again, we know Brooks is going to be the guy, but it's just like some people draft Chuba comfortably. Think, I'm going to grab Chuba. I'm comfortable with him. What do you think of him? He's not even in a discussion for me. He's a no for me. I know you like him more than me. No, he sucks as far as I'm concerned.
See, I don't see where you're getting that he sucks. The guy came in last year and took the starting job away from Miles Sanders, and then he got 1,100 yards from scrimmage. He got 900 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 39 receptions, 233 receiving yards. He took over that backfield, and he was an every week flex play. He was a solid player, and now my big issue right now is the fact that Jonathan Brooks is coming off that ACL. He suffered that ACL injury in November of last year, and now we're expected to believe that this guy is going to be the starter come week 1. And I'm just not sure he's going to be ready. I'm just not sure he's going to be effective. I mean, how many times have we seen guys coming back from these major injuries, and they're just not good? I was reading some article, and it was talking about players coming back from a major injury most often disappoint when it comes to their ADP. They underperform even with the discount on ADP that they're getting. Because if Jonathan Brooks was fully healthy, he'd be going a lot earlier than he is right now. His ADP is like 87. He'd be going like probably 4th, 5th round, something like that. But even with the discount, I'm not sold on Jonathan Brooks. I'm not sold that he can do it this year. And I think that Chuba is probably going to start out being the starter, and then they're going to ease Jonathan Brooks in. So,
but even with
I like him. I think he's a solid choice, and his ADP 166. So that's like a 15th round pick. I'm totally willing to take a chance on Chuba Hubbard at that.
I got him at 138 here. I'm not sure which list you're looking
at. I'm looking at Best Ball. So at Best Ball, he's at 166.
Yeah, 138 here on regular leagues. But what I'm looking at here though, Jim, is last year 238 attempts, only 3.8 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. That is his last hurrah. Like, he had his chance. He blew his load. Even with blowing his load with 238 attempts, which is a lot of attempts, because Jahmyr Gibbs finished as a top 10 running back with only like 180 some odd attempts. So, like, you look at what he's did with the amount of volume, it was nothing. It was peanuts compared to what. And now you bring in Jonathan Brooks. Chuba Hubbard is not relevant on my roster. He's just not. Definitely not with the target dilution and volume dilution with Brooks there. And Breece Hall did okay coming off that knee. So
he did, but it was a very slow start for him as well. He didn't really show up till like the second half of the season. The first month or so, he barely played outside of the first game, so it was, it's that sort of a situation. And while I think that maybe Chuba's opportunities will decrease over the course of the season, he should start out pretty strong. And he's so cheap, he's so cheap on the draft board. I'm willing to take a chance on him again, because I think he showed something last year. And let's not forget that Carolina was an absolutely awful team last year. Yeah. Awful quarterback, awful offensive line, and this guy still got 1,100 yards. So that's also part of the reason why I like him. I think he's got gusto, and he's got he's got a little fire under him, and he wants to prove that he can play. And I think last year he showed that he could. And I'm not convinced that Jonathan Brooks is going to be ready for this year. So we'll see.
Let us know what you guys think. Again, it sounds like you sound like Tim from yesterday's episode of the day before. He was telling me he's drafting Adam Thielen. I'm like, come on, these guys, like, you got to aim high, guys. Come on, let's not settle. You know, you guys are like going for like sixes here when you get a nice 10 at the bar. You're going for the, the girl that's like they call them grenade or something like that. You know, the girl that's like, you want the hot one, but you kind of you settle for the other one on the side. It's not as attractive. It's like, come on, man. Let's step up our game, gentlemen. Chuba Hubbard does not have the ceiling, and I got to take you guys out to the bar one day and get you guys.
There's no 10s in the 15th round, man. I'm telling you that right now. There's no 10s in the 15th round. At best, there's 6s in the 15th round. So that's what I'm looking here. I'm looking at a guy that can hit a bunch of singles and can work in my flex. I think he's a great flex play, at least to start the season. And so, yeah, I like him. I think he's got a good opportunity. I think that Carolina will be better this year as well. That should help make the running backs more effective in general.
All right. We'll move on, but you could Chuba all the way to the last place if you draft them. Chuba, the last place. There you go. That's my joke of the day. Next guy, the only place I want to see Tyler Allgeier is on the bench. Like when I'm watching this game and I'm trying to look at the Falcons bench, I want to be seeing Allgeier on the bench warming it. 186 for Allgeier being a mediocre running back is ludicrous. This guy doesn't deserve, never mind 186, he doesn't deserve 1. He doesn't deserve 8. He doesn't even deserve 6 attempts, dude. The only time you want to get this guy in is when Bijan is absolutely exhausted after coming off a 95-yard breakout run touchdown. And even for that, like it should go right to commercial. The other team gets the ball and then Bijan's back up. I don't want to see Allgeier this year. If I see Allgeier, I'm going to lose it because I'm heavily invested in Bijan this year. And we already know the team wants to use him more. Significant decline for him. And again, I'm not drafting Allgeier. Again, no handcuff. Don't draft Allgeier. Don't do it.
So if you took Breece Hall, in the first round instead of Bijan, you wouldn't take Allgeier late. I mean, I just think it's an easy pick. 156 is his ADP on best ball right now. And, again, if something happens to Bijan, I don't want anything to happen to Bijan. I want him to play the full season. Right. But we know this sport, man, there's a lot of injuries. And if something does happen to Bijan, Allgeier immediately comes in and can be an every week starter. That's the whole point of handcuffs, right? And if you didn't select Bijan in the first round, I got no problem taking Allgeier later on because I think he can get it done. He has handled high volume, and he's not a great running back, but he's a good running back. He's okay.
For warming the bench, sure, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to see him in there if Bijan's healthy. But if Bijan gets hurt, that's the whole point of grabbing the handcuff. I think that Allgeier could be an every week starter, and that makes me want to take him late. Again, we're talking 13th round here. That's an easy get for someone that has the potential to become an every week starter should anything happen to Bijan. So that's where I'm at with that.
But being a Bijan ambassador, I no stock in him. All right. Next one here is Jaleel McLaughlin, who showed some flashes last year. He was good. But where I was turned off is when the Denver Broncos drafted Audric Esteem. So, again, we'll kind of put these guys together. I'd rather have Audric Esteem, man. I really would. We sold on Javonte Williams. This is another situation where you're not getting a Breece or Bijan, a CMC, or a top-tier guy. And the path to reach the top doesn't have as much resistance, if that's kind of the way to explain it. So you got Esteem, you got McLaughlin, you got a bit of a messy committee. On offense is trying to find an identity with a rookie quarterback. I mean, who knows? I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin could have some big games. I'm just not seeing any consistency with this guy. None of these Broncos running backs are on my roster. Maybe Esteem as a late round dart throw stash with some upside because I'm not sold on Javonte Williams. And that's it. That's it for these guys. No excitement, Jim. None.
Yeah, I mean it is an extremely tough situation to see here. But what we did see was that Jamal Williams had just a terrible season last year. 3.5 yards per carry. He just looked like crap. He got like 2 touchdowns. He
Yeah.
doesn't look good. We've talked about in the past how he is the only running back on this team that was not drafted by Sean Payton. So
Yeah.
he's kind of like the odd man out. It's a contract year. And I see someone like Jaleel, who in his limited work was very effective, man. 76 attempts for 410 yards. That's great. And he got 31 receptions also. I see him as kind of the lead guy that could take over, a talented backup that could usurp the lead back if the lead back continues to perform as poorly as he did last year. And so while Audric Estime is also there, yes, there's also another guy they drafted. There's another running back they drafted as well. So it's just a messy situation. But Jaleel is at ADP 153. So, again, it's a low cost investment and it could pay off. I was taking a lot of Jaleel earlier, like pre NFL draft, but then they brought in Steam and stuff, and I kind of stopped drafting him. But I still think that there's a potential here that he could be like Jaylen Wright, someone, not Jaylen Wright, excuse me. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? The Steelers running back.
Warren.
Jaylen Warren. Thank you. Jaylen Warren. Yeah.
There's
So anyway,
Jalen's and Jaleel's.
I know there's a lot of them. There's
you guys got to put it together. But yeah, this can be, look at this. Javonte, Jaleel, Audric Estime, Samaj Perine, Blake Watson, and Michael Burton. Like it's a disaster there.
A lot of those guys are getting cut.
and then when I look at Esteem's number, 6'1", 215, he's a big boy. 210 attempts, 1,341 yards, 6.4 yards per carry, 18 rushing touchdowns, and then 17 receptions for 142 yards. I mean, this guy was a beast last year out of Notre Dame. So I don't know, man. It's like anybody's ball game. They're fighting there. It's a disaster. Right. I just said, you know what? I wipe my hands clean from this committee. You guys just go ahead and figure it out. You go draft Jaleel and Audric and whatever.
Right.
I might roll.
Audric does have a pretty tempting ADP at 212 right now in best ball. That means he's like a 17th or 18th round pick. That's pretty. I mean, why not? I mean, who else are you going to take in the last round of your draft? So.
I think I stashed him. Let me see if I stashed him. No, it wasn't him. I thought I stashed him in one league. It was actually not him. Never mind. I missed out on him, but that's okay. I don't care. It's not the end of the world. Did I get him in this league? No, I ended up getting Bucky Irving, which is an honorable mention. Let's just get right to him right now because I want real quick because again we have 10 here. I want to talk about this guy. We'll get to the last 3. Bucky Irving. I'm not sold on what's his name? Rashad White.
Rashad White. Yeah.
So Bucky Irving has an opportunity to thrive there. What do you think of Irving? He's another guy where you just grab him later and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with White. I mean, he's proven that he's a valuable asset to the Tampa Bay team, and he catches so many balls that's very valuable. Even if he's not so good on the ground, I believe he's under 4 yards per carry his whole career. I still think that he's getting it done through the air. That's valuable, especially in PPR leagues. So I really see Bucky Irving as again, strictly a backup. Well, strictly a handcuff. That's what we're talking about here, right? Handcuffs and ADP 172 in best ball. That's not bad, man. I mean, I would consider taking him there because if something does happen to White, Bucky Irving's stepping into a wide open situation that he can be the lead back there. So that's what you're looking for. Right.
And 2 1,000-yard rushing seasons the past 2 seasons, 6.3 yards per carry last year, 11 touchdowns on the ground out of Oregon. He's a decent running back, Bucky Irving, and they spent a 4th-round draft capital pick on him, which tells me they want to add depth, or are they just not sold on White? And Sean Tucker was a good running back out of college, just never got it going. I think he had some health issues there. It's going to be interesting. I'm just not sold on Rashad White, and he's expensive this year. He's a little more expensive than I would like.
I've gotten Rashad White in like the 5th round. It's not that bad. That's not a bad price to take him. And he was an RB1 last year. I think he was like the RB12, RB11, right in that range. He was right at the cusp of the RB1, RB2 range. So
I just have no interest. I see him sitting in the PPR rankings as RB9. He's coming off after Kyren Williams and ahead of Isaiah Pacheco on the rankings right now. I think
I'd rather have Pacheco. But I don't hate Rashad White. I hated him last year, and that was a bad call. And I think he's a good back. I mean, I think he's good and effective, and he's just they throw the ball to him so much that by itself is very valuable.
Yeah, but
It's worth
the
$0.50.
sheep actually have Derrick Henry after Rashad White is ludicrous. Derrick Henry at 12, White at 9. That's crazy. Forget that. Like I'm
Yeah,
all
well,
in. Yeah.
yeah.
Way more. All right, 3 more to go here. Again, make sure you guys grab 16 rounds. I've linked it below, or head on over to thefantasyfootballcows.com. I don't want to spend too much time on these next guys. I have no interest in the next two, but the last guy I like. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that one. Jaylen Wright, Miami, another speedster. It's another disaster of a committee I'm avoiding. Devin Otchain, very expensive this year. I'm not sold because, again, you've got Waddle who got paid, very well. And then you've got Tyreek, and then you've got Chain. Who else they got in that committee? Everybody's on that committee.
Mostert's the big question mark, right? Because Mostert's like 32-year-old running back. How long can he continue to perform like he did last year? I mean, that last year was insane. When he got 20 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the big thing. I think that's the reason why people are latching on to Wright, because they see durability issues with durability and longevity issues with Mostert, and then Otchain also durability issues. So there's an easy path here. I mean, I can really see an easy path that he could come in and become a part of this backfield just due to the fact that one of the other two guys is going to get hurt, not going to be playing. So, and he is blazing fast. This Miami team, that's what they base their whole team on.
Speed.
So, yeah, and ADP 152. He's not that expensive. So
189 in regular leagues, 1 point PPR. But what turns me off, this is a similar situation with the Lloyd situation in Green Bay. Enough to turn me off. You spend a 4th round draft capital pick on a speedster when you believe in Otchain. That's our guy. That's our guy. We don't need to spend a 4th round capital pick, right, on this guy. And they did. So that was enough to turn me off and say, hey, they don't really believe in Otchain. I'm not sold they believe in him. There's an issue there.
Yeah, how many games did Otchain miss? I think he played 12 last year. I mean, again, there's definitely durability concerns when it comes to Otchain because he's not a big guy. So they bring in additional depth, and this is again, he seems like a very similar player to Otchain as far as their skill set. But again, I can see the path. I can see a very easy path that this guy could become a starter, right? That this guy could move into the starting position just based on injury risk of the other players. So yeah, I think he's good.
All right, moving on to the next guy here, Alexander Madison. I have 0 stock in this guy. I don't care for him. I've got tons of stock as Zamir White. I'm sold on Zamir White being the guy. The guy had like 60 some odd attempts in the last 3 games of the season, was a workhorse, running over 100 yards a game, willingly got rid of Josh Jacobs, 230 plus void attempts there. Madison's a failed running back. He's a failed backup. He was a failed starter last year. The guy sucks, and he's good enough just to be a backup. That's why he's on this list. He is just a handcuff, and not a good one for that matter as well. You're getting a significant degrade there. Again, we're not sure what to see out of Zamir White. Jim thinks that, Zamir White had this last hurrah, and it was just fool's gold. And I think, well, no, Zamir White could be the David Johnson of 2016, because David Johnson, if you remember, Arizona, he came on at the end of 2015. I drafted him. I asked him to endorse the brand. I went to his house. We did the photo video shoot, David Johnson, and he tore it up, had an amazing 2016 year. Zamir White could be that good this year. I mean, he's hungry. He's a beast. He's got a great story. Look up Zamir White's story. He's been an underdog his whole life. So he is hungry, man. The opportunity is knocking. Knock, 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 knock. And guess who's going to open that door is going to be Zamir White. So Madison's just sucks. That's my thought.
Yeah. The thing is, I consider Madison has been a quality backup. When he was playing behind Cook, he was great. Whenever he was called on to be in there because Cook was injured, he played great. And last year, he couldn't do the full workload, which was bad. But again, you look at the backfield, the backfield here in Las Vegas, and it really is. It's just White and it's Madison. That's it, man. And so it's like there's gonna be a role for Madison in this offense. And I've repeatedly talked about Zamir White, about those running backs that come on right at the end of the year. Yes, David Johnson is an example of where it turned out well, but I could point to Cam Akers as an example where it didn't turn out well, where Cam Akers 2 seasons ago came on, the final 6 games of the year, just exploded, unbelievable usage. And then they literally cut him like early the next season and brought in Kyron. So, again, I think Madison, there's going to be opportunity there. There's going to be opportunity. And if White can't get it done, Madison is there to pick up the slack. So, his ADP right now is 212. Again, about the same point as who else were we talking that was right in that range? Oh, Audric Esteem. I'd rather have Madison because I think his path to a role is much clearer than Esteem is. And so, and we're talking 18th, 19th round. There's not a lot of players at that point in the draft which are intriguing to me, and I think Madison is kind of like the last running back I would be interested in at that point of the draft. So
he's just a safe insurance policy, and then you got to be concerned, obviously, of lack of performance of Zamir White. So that's the only kind of plus to Madison because we don't know what to expect out of Zamir other than that little short window of last year doing well. But again, I like the 5th round ADP of Zamir White for the chance of him being an absolute beast, and I'm all in on that value. Last guy here, I like him. I mean, if you look at his college years, last 3 years of his college, 1,200 yards, a couple years ago, multiple years, 12 touchdowns over the past 3 seasons is kind of his average. He was a beast in college. Some people comparing him to A.J. Dillon. He's just a big much this guy's way much better than A.J. Dillon. And obviously the Jets believe in him because they invested a, believe it or not, 4th round pick, which is relatively high. For running backs this year, they're just undervalued. Great running backs that could be coming off in round 1 are just being completely devalued. The Jets obviously wanted some depth at the position. The good news is for Breece Hall is that Dalvin Cook, who was Dalvin Cook, and you think that he would have got some volume. I knew he was done anyway. Everyone was drafting Dalvin Cook round 5 last year. I said, don't do it. Even him, he was held at bay with 67 attempts. And coming off an injury. So I'm wondering how much. I think Braelon Allen, again, another insurance policy. I'm not as concerned. I don't think Braelon Allen is just I think he could take over if Breece Hall goes down and can be a really good running back. Whereas I feel like guys like MarShawn Lloyd, which you talked about, Jaylen Wright, are going to be more as guys that are just really going to dip into that volume. Whereas Braelon Allen is more of an insurance policy with the major upside if Breece goes down. So I've got Braelon Allen in my leagues as just there as a Breece Hall insurance policy. That's it.
Yeah, I actually just took Breece in a best ball draft that I did just the other day, and yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity is there and the talent is there.
Yeah,
that should anything happen to Breece, and I think Breece is going to be fine this year. I think he's going to be great. I think he definitely has the potential to be the number 1 running back this year. But this is a brutal sport. There's a lot of injuries. It happens all the time. It happened to Breece. Happened to Breece 2 seasons ago. So when you look at it, he's the clear-cut number 2 on this team. And if anything happens to Breece, he is an RB1. He's going to be an RB1 for your team. So, in any team where I have not taken Breece Hall, I would like to grab Braelon Allen late. And he is very late. He's ADP 185. So, again, he's like a last-round player in most drafts. I'm absolutely willing to take the chance on him. And should something happen to Breece, I think he could be a league winner. So, yeah.
We've got him 237 ADP on regular leagues. But again, coming off a little bit higher than expected. So some of these guys, their ADP is really low. People are still stashing them around 14 to 16, still being stashed in a lot of leagues. So Braelon Allen, sky is the limit if Breece goes down. So to handcuff or not to handcuff, we've answered it in this video. Go back to the beginning of the video, the full answer there. Jim, thanks for coming on, man. It was a long episode today, but hey, it keeps people interested on their commute. So make sure you guys smash, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up. Anything else, Jim, you want to say to the commuters, fans, fantasy passionates? Anything else you want to add to them?
Hey, thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it, and tune in next time.
I thought you'd say go handcuff your girlfriend to the bed and have some fun. I was expecting.
Well, I would, but my wife would probably have something to say.
Too much fun here, man. All right, guys, subscribe, thumbs up, and smash it, tap it, slap it with handcuffs. We're out, guys. Thanks.
All right, have a good one, Kelsey.